I'm French. I love the debate.
I didn't know we'd be having this discussion.
Your muscles are not your personality. Personality to a man is what makeup is to a woman.
At one point I figured out that optimizing for money is a fallacy, and this is what the red pill hasn't exactly figured out. We're not trying to optimize for how much we get laid when we're trying to make our life good. We're trying to optimize to how to make our life good.
You're wrong. Confidence is being fine and accepting the uncertain outcome and the randomness of outcome, but being fine with whatever that outcome is.
That's a major red flag if someone has no social skills at all, you know?
If you're a guy and you chase a woman and that woman gives you the time of day, but is not willing to give you a relationship, there's a reason for it. And you as a guy trying to get for what she's not giving you is only confirming what she's already thinking, which is you're not that good enough for me.
I'm going to say something that's going to hurt somebody's feelings just now.
I love the disclaimer, by the way.
This is Winning the Game of Life, presented to you by Dan Jungleman Case.
All right, guys, today I've got a spicy guest. He's played poker before, and now he's helping with the strategy of trying to figure out what the fuck's wrong with these guys that they can't get laid. So he's helping them with their dating lives. It takes a whole nother level of strategy. We're going to see how poker's helped him with that and what sort of strategies he uses to fix these guys' fucking lives, because I think that takes a lot more effort and is a lot more challenging. Poker, I personally find it very interesting. What's up, French OG? I see you're in the streets, the Twitter streets, tweeting all sorts of intellectual stuff, making caustic points, especially against people with lots of cognitive dissonance and ego issues. So French OG, how's tweeting truths that nobody wants to hear but has to hear going for you in the Twitter streets?
I mean, I blew up over the past year whatsoever. I started like few hundred subscribers, followers back in 2023, middle 2023. I had maybe 200, and then end of January 2025, and got about 17,000. So I guess it went pretty well, right? For me, I've just keep on doing what I've been doing ever since, basically being honest and just say things how it is, right? Because at the end of the day, it's nice lying to yourself, but the longer it takes for you to actually come to realize what you're telling yourself to actually what is real, the harder the pain. So the earlier you know, the better.
Well, I definitely agree with that. Now, here's the thing. Not everyone cares to hear that, or just fucking cares, at least on paper. They'll just tell you they don't give a shit. Let's be honest here. Accepting plenty of truths is quite challenging, especially when they're very painful. I learned this myself. I thought I was really good at that. There were some that I did not want to hear, but 99 point whatever percent I think I'm pretty good with, like losing shitload of money straight away, whatever. No big deal. Who cares about money? But I would imagine you get quite in some fights. You get some people saying some crazy things back to you. Maybe it's like threatened with libel or whatever the fuck they do these days, to being sued. I guess maybe not libel, more likely being sued is, I think, something that likely happens to people in your position, just because who knows what people do.
Don't get me wrong. It's simple. For me, I try to avoid getting into fights with people that have got media personality, because to be honest, clout is not worth it. For what? Clout for what? Does clout pay me? Do you see what I'm saying? But libel suit or some other type of things going against me from a financial perspective, I just don't see the point. Then you have some nobodies basically trying to take a stab at me, but I've got fucking 15 years of experience of taking shots, so it's like they don't know who the fuck they're dealing with, so I just block them, and then I say my pieces, and then I can block them so they cannot report me. Before, I never used to block people, even though you had some people that just were just trying to basically take a stab at me and everything. And one day there was a guy that took a stab at me, and I said, hey, look, once you basically stop being a B word, right? I don't know if you can swear on your podcast.
You can swear on the podcast. It's about uncomfortable truths. We can fucking swear.
It's like when you stop being a bitch boy, you basically can comment back on my thing, right? Then basically, I never really insult people, but I was having a really bad day, and he just took the brunt of it. Within a couple of hours, I was restricted for 12 hours. And then I thought to myself, yeah. And I was like, and I have people that have harassed me for fucking month have harassed me, right? I was like, you know what? Let me just report that guy based on the story. No, nothing. And I was like, okay, fine. Not only I'm not being paid by X for I've got 100 million plus impression that I've not been paid for. But then when people even make sometimes obvious racial statements against me, I get fucked anyway. And I'm like,
so weird.
Yeah, so I know there's double standards. So I kind of like, okay, cool. Like I'll know that there are things that I'm not gonna go involved myself in, go myself in. Right.
I didn't know there was like some weird racial double standards. That's another story. Well, first of all, what exactly is it that you do, and how did you switch from poker to this? Because you don't have a website currently. You have a YouTube and a podcast, and you tweet a lot. And apparently, guys reach out to you, and you help fix their lives with women anyway. How does this work?
Well, the thing is, I started playing poker, like, like you're at your friend's place, dad's and the friend basically had poker. We brought all the guys and I was like, all right, cool, and I started to enjoy the game. And that was maybe it was like late 2000. So it was a bit after the Chris Moneymaker craze and shit. And then there was this website. So I was based in France back then, right? So it was, and Winamax was just getting, it's a big website now. I think they have Adrian, one of the top poker tournament guys, right?
Winamax? That's a French site.
Yeah, but on top of that, what was great with the French side is it was very soft. There were so many fishes compared to Full Tilt or compared to like Poker Star. So for me, I was having a good day. So I started doing that. That basically paid for my university. Once I paid for my university, I was all right, cool. Then I'm going to do some. I started working corporate. What happened was that I basically worked my way into the low limits to the mid stakes, but I never went a bit further than that. Why? And on top of that, just tournaments, like generally low entry fee tournament that I was just grinding and multi-tabling, generally having about 25-30% ROI on them, but on very low field. I didn't want to focus on high variance. I really hated like the Sunday tournament, for example, like because it was like massive field. It was like to me lottery tickets. So it was a bit more than just your average sit and go stuff, right? And then for the lower limits, I was going actually on UK websites when I moved to the UK, because then I didn't have to pay the ridiculous rate based upon the French website. And all of this basically enabled me to have a decent lifestyle. However, what happened is I had to come to make a decision, right? Where at some point I was like, well, I pay my universities, but I'm not getting as much joy as I used to from poker because I treat it like a business. And I was like, and you have to get like those strikers. Before we didn't have like the solvers, everything. I was like, it's becoming way too, like mathematicalized. And I'm very much of an intuitive person.
No, you
I
are.
hate going through all of this. Yeah. So I went on to corporate for 5 years in finance, and I did 5 years in sales, and I did 1 year in consulting. And then just randomly, I was like, what, I'll just, as I said earlier, I just started tweeting and on some stuff that I was doing on the side that I had outside of my work. I was basically having success with girls and everything. So I was like, okay, well, I took like years and years of notes as to why things happened the way they did. Tried many different things. I looked at the red pill, the black pill, the P-way, all of this, right? And kind of like, okay, well, now that I've got all this insight, all this thing, well, how about I dump it all on Twitter? Obviously, Substack afterwards, so that I can create all the best articles. And let's see if I can be of value to the community. And then people start really reaching out to me. And the reason why I am who I am is because I deliver things in a way that you won't get from, let's say, your typical type of thread bots account and whatnot.
There's still a couple missing pieces here. It sounds like you made some money from poker, and then you said you went to university, and then it sounded like you said, well, why don't you try this dating coaching thing?
Thing is, what happened, I was in France and I was doing like a lot of pickup because I was like single and whatnot, right? I was like 18, 21, doing a lot of pickup and everything. Then moved to the UK, then was in a long-term relationship, and then basically broke it off. And then I was like 5 years of a further pickup and all that. So technically, I've not only have pickup, but a long-term relationship, then pickup before, pickup after, or whatever.
Well, it's not called a pickup just because pickup's so taboo, and it usually refers to something that it's a bit tricky to explain why pickup's fucked up to both audiences, both the women and men, because they both have different viewpoints.
I mean, to be honest, like, for me, it never was that pickup artist that basically had, I'm going to have that day game session or that night game session whatsoever. I'm not,
you have a layer.
Same thing as with poker. Like, like you have like all those multi-tables, like you have like those fucking nosebleeders guys, right? They like fucking 50 tables on, I don't know. For me, I was just like 4 to 8 tables max, right? 4 to 8 tables. And I rather basically, and the same thing with approach. I would just approach when I wanted, when I felt like it, and when I felt that the odds were in my favor, right? I was not going to be VPIP fucking 50% of the time.
You're gonna schedule day game session. You're gonna schedule, we're going to the mall. I'm gonna pick up some girls, or you're going to the club. It's time to Sarge or whatever. And shit, I gotta do a report of how I went. I got 30% numbers. It's a good day.
But funny enough, I had the same approach, right? Like when I first started poker, right? I was looking at the very much tag approach, tight aggressive, right? So I would only go for girls that gave me IOIs, right? And then I was like, well, it's fucking boring to always play 10% of your hands like on a 9-handed table. It's funnier than you basically go and start playing 6-handed or 5-handed, but widen the range of cards that you play with. So instead of playing 10% of your rage card, like you pay 25%. Like, whereas before you fold king 8, then you basically start playing with king 8, right? That's the way where you approach girls sometimes. Like, before I would never approach girls in groups because I'd be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I'd be like, all right, I'll just do that, whatever, because I'm just curious and I want to see how things go. It's the same approach that happened. And before, I remember when I started playing poker, right, I was like, oh, I've got ace 10. And then you have like some board that is like 5, 3, 10, right? And the first thing I had in my mind was, I need to protect the hand. I need to protect the hand. And when I was betting pot on the flop, I was like, because I was so afraid, at that time when you like, how do I say, you slow played just your top pair, and then you have like that, for example, you've got a pair of kings, and then you've got the ace that comes on the turn, and you're like, because you decide to slow play. So, like you had that, it's traumatic, and you're like, I just don't want that to happen. Even though from a statistical perspective it's very low, what happens is that you're not going to make efficient move in terms of drawing in people in order to get more money in the pot once you're ahead. So it's about understanding that once you're ahead, you need to see how the texture of the board, the number of players coming in, what is the most efficient play. Do you want to play 1/3 of the pot, half of the pot, 3/4 of the pot, based upon all those variables and the people's involved? And you're like, okay, well, there are so many more dynamics and variables at play. And what's really good about this, right, that enables you to actually understand how people function. People think so much in black and white when actually there are so many variables at play on your day-to-day lives, right? And they want the easiest explanation when actually there are many things that they are not in control of, first of all, and that they're almost likely it's going to be the collateral damage. And that people have a hard time believing it or understanding it if they've not, for example, played poker or seen multi-dimensional type of plays.
How did you start making money from this? Because that seems a bit challenging, especially if you got like no name. I'm a little bit curious. It's got the similar quality of playing poker in that you're kind of on your own. You have to figure shit out. But I would think this is a bit more challenging because, like, how the fuck do you get clients when you have no name, no nothing?
Thing is, it's like people started DMing me, right? Because you say something that is very relevant, right? Because like you discuss about things. I mean, I discuss about things that are very broad. But then sometimes I go on shorter tweets on things that are very specific, and then it resonates with someone, and then they'd be like, "Oh my God, you exactly described everything that I went through. Like, how can you help me?" And it's like at the beginning you're happy to help, because that's what you want to do. Like, you want to help people because, and for me, I'm kind-hearted, right? I started helping people for free. I was still working, right? I was still working like at a not really blue chip company, but like a mid-market cap company, right? Whatever. What happened is that I realized that a lot more people started basically coming in and asking for help. And then I've started getting clients, keeping clients, and more clients coming in. And as you basically build up your portfolio of clients, then you have a certain capacity that you can work with, and you have to increase your fee as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because there's so much that you can deal with, and then there are some people that are going to drop out, some people that are not going to drop out. But it was like a little bit was based upon, let's say, internal marketing from an email list that I've generated from a free book that I created. More than half of my clients have come straight from DMs, and I've not done any type of paid ads whatsoever. It's just people just getting warm to you from the consistent production of content that build a certain resonance with them.
I mean, I think your route is kind of interesting. I didn't know that it was just this, and then you kind of figure out how do you actually fix these people's lives. So the next question is, okay, you've got some poker experience. We've got some experience with a complicated system with lots of incomplete information. I would think that helping people in dating has some similarity to that, except there's even more emotions at play. And so you have to, I mean, there's plenty of room for intuition, and you don't have to use data so much exactly, especially in an unsolved situation, and where there are some weird variables in dating that are going to be hard to analyze with sheer data. Was poker at all useful in trying to figure out, okay, how do we actually help these people sort of succeed? Was there any comparison to like playing a hand and not really knowing what's going on the other side? I see some big differences also, but like that's the question.
Interestingly enough, what I've noticed is that a lot of my audience, including a lot of my clients, are of INTJ, BTI, right? I don't think you're INTP. Personally, I am ENTP, right? So, I kind of like, we're all NTs mostly. And what you tend to find with INTJs, or the J very much, is that you have a lot of people that are very judgmental. They see everything very black and white. They're not as, let's say, I won't say understanding, but as open-minded as what they suspect because, as you said earlier.
So I don't really understand what you mean by black and white, honestly. Someone described me this way, but I don't think that I'm very black and white, to be honest.
You're not, because you're open to different type of, how do you call it? You're open to different type of ideas, right? As to kind of like making up your own. That's why last time I thought you were INTP. There's a lot of what you said earlier, which was projection. Like there are a lot of time because they have a set of values, they expect the other people to have that set of value, right? Whereas when you're not necessarily as that, you're more on the P side of things, you're more likely to actually entertain different thought process because you're always in a prospecting sphere, right? So for me, what I say to them is, first of all, don't take things all personally, right? Don't take things all personally for one simple reason is there are known unknowns. And not everything is based upon you. As the same thing, it's like you can play the hand perfectly on poker and you basically can lose the hand. Does that mean that you should not play the hand the way you played it? No, because you focus just on that one specific outcome. But if I'm telling you that you did everything right based upon what you're telling me, I'm saying that you should continue, because at the end of the day, what is confidence? Confidence is knowing that you did the right thing irrespective of the outcome. It is not a contingent as the outcome to make you confident, because a lot of people, what they misconstrue is they think that they're going to be confident by the certainty of what the hell they're doing in terms of the outcome they get. And I said, no, you're wrong. Confidence is being fine and accepting the uncertain outcome and the randomness of outcome, but being fine with whatever that outcome is. And it's about getting that into their head. But for a lot of people, because competence creates confidence, for them it's almost like I need to make them believe that confidence will create that competence once you get the positive reinforcement. But you got to trust the process before you actually get there, because the original idea that I'm saying to them, that's uncertainty and the comfort under uncertainty is what brings confidence, is a bit hard for them to grasp. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I would think that the INTJs would be pretty smart, right? They're supposed to be smart.
Oh, they're very smart. They're very, very smart. They're very, very smart. But sometimes smartness can be something that can hold you back. I have a relative, very, very fucking smart, like much smarter than me, right? And he always had trouble making friends and just bonding with people because he was intelligent. People could tell he was intelligent, and his intelligence was something that was off-putting, almost as if, even though he was not bragging, just the passive demeanor of his detachment toward other was almost as insulting as if he said anything, if you see what I'm saying. The vibe was...
Are you saying he's too aloof? Is that what you're saying?
Not too aloof, from a perspective that whenever he hears something from someone and he just doesn't agree with, he'd be very dismissive, too dismissive of others, if you see what I'm saying. Between dismissiveness and aloofness, it's a matter of degree, if you see what I'm saying.
But you could be disagreeable with people and and not be super annoying. I mean, there's probably doing something in there that he doesn't realize is pissing people off, I would think. I would think it gets in their way in other ways, to be honest. One of the ways that intelligence can get in the way of progress of anything is if, for example, you're interested in too many things and you've got all these fucking ideas, but you don't follow through on any of them also the way. And so maybe you become really ADD, which I would think would not be the worst in the case of dating, actually. I could see how this would be positive, but I mean, in the case of dating, there's lots of analysis paralysis, not get in the way of just doing stuff. I think that happens a lot. I mean, I've had experience with that, and I'm sure you deal with these guys a lot where you tell them to do something and they don't do it, and it's kind of you just got to put in the volume, which is kind of what you're saying, and that's how you get the confidence, right? It sounds similar to poker, where you get confidence in that you see that bluffs work or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, okay, even if the bluff doesn't work 100% of the time, then it's now a good play because you've seen that it works plenty, and now you're figuring out, okay, I'm figuring out a clue what's going on here. It seems kind of similar in dating, where ejecting lots of stuff into complicated systems, and then there's certain outputs that are kind of yes or no.
I would say don't bluff women. They'll almost always call your bluff. Don't use threats, don't use ultimatums, because in their chutzpah, they'll think, okay, let's test, right? And then when they test it and you basically do good by your word, it's almost the end, if you see what I'm saying. So it's almost like you need to convey to them that basically they should not test you in a way that avoids you to break up the relationship, because a lot of time when guys will say, don't do this shit, it's when they really much at the tail end of their feathers. If you see what I'm saying?
That sounds like you're holding up a boundary. That last thing you said, of like, don't do this or you're going to end the relationship.
That sounds like more like an ultimatum. If you say, like, for example, the thing is, it's like she does something that's something that you don't like, right? That is kind of like, oh, for example, she walked in the flat with her shoes on, right? It's like, okay, just take your shoes off. Like, I don't like that type of stuff. This, you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's not really a boundary type of stuff, but like, say, for example, I don't want you to go on girls trip, or else.
Starting anything with or else is like the really, really last resort. It's like such a shitty strategy because if you don't reinforce the or else part, you kind of fuck yourself and you like lead into this situation where the vibe is ruined, where now there's this weird thing where you're kind of injecting this harsh stipulation into something and it making the situation just a lot less appealing to deal with. Let's put it that way. Bluffing is maybe not the right word, but just trying to win the pot, in which case like the equivalent with dating would be just trying to talk to women. That seems to me much better. And I would say this is true for poker. It's much better to try to get some kind of experience, generally speaking, on average for most people than to do nothing. Because you have to learn somehow, right? I mean, you got to get in there. You got to get experience somehow. And it's a little bit more complicated for dating for various reasons. But I would think that that's the first thing that you get these guys doing, right? Is you get them to meet more women, right?
I mean, you have two different type of people. You have the people that are just like, all right, let's get in, let's get on. And it's almost like they don't mind making mistakes. They just don't mind. They'll just be like, yeah, let's go. And then we'll just adapt here and there, right? And then you have the people that just want to have like a fucking roadmap from A to Z and how, you know, and I'm just like, look, life is chaotic. Life is random. That's what poker taught me. You know, it's like, be fine with dealing with randomness. And also don't attribute your successes and your failure always to something that is necessarily fixed. It's like one of the biggest book in terms of influence that got me really like, that was my poker experience, was Fooled by Randomness from Taleb, Nassim Taleb. And it's like, it makes you become humble in your success, but at the same time, it makes you feel less of a culprit in your mistakes. Both can lead to misinterpretation, meaning by that, like, if you're too, you know, owning your accountability is that you overly attribute your success and you become complacent. Or if you completely disregard all of your losses, you know, all of your failures as something as a matter of luck, then you're most likely not going to make any improvements because you're not really taking accountability, your agency. So on one end, you have people that overindulge in agency ownership, and then you have the opposite side, if you see what I'm saying. So poker helps you with both, where I think, and maybe tell me if you agree with that, but I think about poker, there's about 70% of luck, about 70% of, you know, skills and 30% of luck. 70-75.
It would depend on the sample. If it's a single session, these days, you're extremely unlikely to win very far over 50%. If you're winning like 53% plus, you're killing it. I suppose against very soft competition in situations where your opponents fold a lot, you could win up to, people get this wrong all the time, by the way. If you're winning something like 60% of the time, you'd be just annihilating out of this planet. But I don't think that that's really an easy thing to actually happen. I will say that poker, it's very descriptive in terms of analyzing precisely what that agency is. It just refers to it as something like an edge. And this doesn't seem to have the equivalent carryover to other aspects of real life as it should. I mean, there's one reason for this in that a lot of people don't think in this kind of way. What I mean is they don't think so analytically. I'm still thinking of these words black and white because I don't know what the fuck that means actually, other than oversimplifying things. Because I'll take an example in a second. I just want to finish this thought, just because in the dating industry and in the self-help industry, they tend to wildly overcompensate, specifically in the direction of, they think that, I mean, this is a bit of American mentality, by the way. And one thing that you may not know about America is that America had one of the best histories ever and the best geography, which people forget about. It's part of the reason, in fact, that America is so entrepreneurial. Like Americans in general say, follow your dreams and all these sorts of things. Well, other countries can't really do that or could not have done that, period. And people from those countries often can't do that as well. It's a bit of a correlation between those things. And you can see this echoing through the self-help industry and in dating. But I would say that it's kind of true for most Americans and first world people in dating. I want to hear your thoughts thoughts on that, and I also want to hear about this black and white description.
First thing is about the American stuff. So I lived in America for 2 years, right? So I'm mostly in the West Coast. So I understand the principle of like entrepreneurship, about basically get up and go. And also another big thing that I've noticed from Americans versus French people, right? Because I live in the UK now, is American have got this positivity attitude, the positive attitude that we're gonna make it work, we're gonna make it work. Like, whereas French is like, that's not happening. Very defeatist, right? So, and the funny thing is, there's this saying in French, impossible is not French, but we always find ways to make it impossible. That's the funny thing about us. But whereas Americans overemphasize the agency of the individual, French people overemphasize the emphasis on the environment. It's always about, okay, well, what is it? Is it the person? Is it the environment? Whereas a bit of both. And that goes the same thing with dating, and now just transition with the black and white stuff, all right? Say you're a guy. You're going to approach a girl, just wherever. You could be in the supermarket, you could be on, just on the street, you could basically be at a bar, whatever. And you don't get like a positive response on that one single outcome. Or just talking about, like we're talking about hands played, or like, I don't know, just tables played, session played, whatever you want to say, tournament played, then the level of variance will be just wide, crazy. You don't really like, if she says no to you, it may not necessarily be because you're that hot guy, or you're the ugly guy, or that short guy. When I say don't take things personally, like if you knew the level of, because guys project, again, the way we think, we're thinking logically, right? It's like, oh, it's because I'm not Chad that she doesn't give me this. I mean, yeah, of course Chad will have everything that's easy for him. Like, yeah, happy days. But when you're part of the one standard deviation, -1 + 1, you're not going to be a Chad. So basically you have to deal with the cards you're being dealt. You've got King Jack. This is not double aces. I'm sorry. So you deal with this, right? It's a bit tricky. The boards you're never really that great. The best thing that you can hope for potentially is a flush draw.
You get some top 2 with King Jack. You get some Jack X boards. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you get some stuff, right? But King Jack is not a card that you'll just go broke out 20 big blinds, will you? Do you see what I'm saying?
King Jack in some situations. And I guess there are some dating parallels. It's more variance in dating, for sure.
Let's say you're at the WPT main event. You're midway through the tournament, and you've got King Jack, and you're somewhat of a big stack. Let's say you've got 80 big blinds, right? And you have like this guy that's got 20 big blinds that's shoving all in. Will you call with King Jack, holding everything else equal?
I didn't know we'd be having this discussion. Pretty sure I know what your point is, but I don't know the hand. So fine. You don't love King Jack. We're there. Okay.
You're midway through the WPT tournament main event.
All right. Where are you going with this?
What I'm saying is there are situations where when you've got King, let's say for example your looks, or whatever, your presentation, your overall value, your SMV, whatever, sexual market value, is equivalent to a King Jack. That will open you some opportunities, but you'll be faced with competition depending upon where you place yourself in, where is the environment you place yourself. Are you playing mid position? Are you playing early position? Are you playing late position? See what I'm saying? In terms of, are you putting yourself in places where you're going to have you're going to be better on a relative basis in terms of your competition? Say, for example, you got King Jack, but you go and you're in a city that is not necessarily as popular or as competitive in terms of offer for men than if you are in. You see what I'm saying? Which spot are you going into as a person? Understand where your value is and see what you can call for and what you can put money in the pot.
Actually, you're getting to one of the bigger differences between poker and dating. This is a big thing that people don't really understand. There's some of this in No Limit Hold'em specifically, and in certain games where certain hands perform very well in like isolated versions of certain spots, but not so well in others. I mean, it's not true about aces. Aces performs everywhere. This would be the equivalent of being, as you say, Chad, being fucking amazing looking. If you're amazing looking, all data says you don't need a whole lot to figure out that you're gonna crush no matter what. But in most of the cases, and this is a bit of the suggested solution of the problem at whole, because let's be honest, dating as a large scale problem in the first world, growing problem. Well, let me give you an example of a story of mine. So once upon a time, I was wearing blue hair because I went God mode and I won a tournament. So I was walking around with blue hair in Las Vegas, and I have the personality that is open to a lot of different situations. So I get myself in some weird spots. But I also saw many spots that the red pill broke. That clearly wasn't true. Well, with the blue hair, I got quite a bit of action in terms of like girls would like go out of their way to try to talk with me and this kind of stuff. Ironically, people mocked me saying on the internet at some point, some genius had this idea of saying, oh, look at Jungleman with his blue hair. He's so unattractive, something like that. The irony being I probably got way more action with my fucking blue hair than whoever the fuck wrote this article. And certainly without it, like I got quite a bit of love with it. But the point being that this thing attracted probably not lots of women exactly, but it turned on many of them like a lot more, even though it's not like an optimal strategy in terms of numbers. We'll see what you think, because I'm sure this is not part of your whole, like, what do you tell people that I'm pretty sure you're not telling people you need to dye your hair blue.
Literally, what you're doing is you're polarizing your range. You're polarizing your range with this stuff, right? Which is what we would call peacocking.
Oh, is that peacocking? I thought it was something that peacocking would fall into the subset of. So I would have thought that peacocking is just a way of gathering lots of attention. I can see how that like period is good. I do that, but it's kind of just for fun. It is actually to get some attention too, and frankly, it's to bring more spice to the poker world. It isn't to get women.
Think about it this way: it's an icebreaker in the sense that basically people can actually go and talk to you with a valid excuse, right? Think about it this way, right? When I say to people, when you approach someone, imagine a dollar bill of $100 fell out of their pocket. You'd pick it up and you'd feel the right to actually talk to that person, right? Well, it's the same thing. You must feel the right to actually speak to that person, right? But then when they see you with the blue hair, they'd be like, oh, I've got to make a comment about it because it is so, I don't know, goofy, ridiculous, original, however you want to put it. But you see what you've got there. You've got an entry point. You got an entry point in the sense that you can actually show confidence in the fact that you actually really don't give a fuck. And what does that mean that you don't give a fuck? You go to a hospital and you want to see a doctor, and then you see this guy, he's dressed like a civilian, but apparently he's a doctor. No, he's not wearing the white stuff and all this. What do you think he is? Do you think he's a higher doctor or a lower doctor than the one with the white blouse and whatever you call it? Most people be like, oh, he's just like some random dude, right? But a few people that are smart enough knows that, well, if this guy can get away with murder inside, not following company's protocol, then that means the reason why he can do that is because he's way above everyone else. That basically they want to still keep him. So basically they get preferential treatment. Think about companies, right? I remember software engineers, they'd be like going in fucking New Balance shoes, fucking jeans and t-shirts, whatever at company. Why? Because they were fucking desperate for them. So they'd be giving them extra type of leeway for stuff. Whereas the other one be like wearing a bloody suit. You know, and that's what I've seen in tech. It's always the idea. It's like look for discriminatory behavior or discriminatory practices that is benefiting those individuals. And technically what you're doing is by you basically saying, putting your hair blue, and I'm not saying for the girls to do that, by the way. For you putting your hair blue is just saying a big fuck you to the norm in the sense of like, I can get away with murder because that's just the way I do.
I guess it's true in dating. In poker, you'll make some money doing all the things that everybody else does and like just grinding your way, but you'll never really stand out doing that. I guess. There's loads of dudes like this, by the way. Many of these guys that play on stream or play tournaments, and like, what the fuck is the difference between any of them if you're looking from like afar and don't really know them properly? And I think this is really a huge percent of what's going through women's minds is they're like looking at these guys and like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know anything about these guys, and a lot of it doesn't look good, right? This is what they look like. Look at it on dating apps. There's more problems than that, but there's a million list of guys that say the same fucking thing. So there's that. They can't figure out A from B. You know, there's overwhelming information, but it's kind of like walking into a poker room and seeing a bunch of guys staring at each other wearing polos and like being asked to pick one.
Think about it this way, like how can you expect exceptional result when you do average ordinary things every day, right? Like you have ordinary strategy, how can you get abnormal results? You can't. You need to think outside the box. Apparently, before solvers came into play, right, a lot of people were actually not playing as efficient as they thought they did. And then now everybody's on solvers and you're like, okay, well, is there going to be a wave to recreate new ways of making more money because everybody's playing so efficiently? If you see what I'm saying.
You're actually getting a bit of the meta problem of poker. And this is something I try to talk about and I try to get people more in the realm of thinking. It's like, okay, we need to approach the problem a little bit differently for making money. And I tell them to open up more avenues, and big part also to learn other games as well. That really seems very transposable over to dating. And this is how I had some success, really. Is just, I mean, I tried other things as well to a degree, but basically focusing on more niche environments. Basically the same strategy, just transposed. I thought that actually going on some niche websites would be very useful. I had various unique problems because of my unique situation, but because of my unique situation, I could see lots of things other people couldn't see. It became more of a marketing problem in a sense, or like what the sample looked like. Poker, what you would do is you might move or put yourself on a different site, like literally the same thing. Seems true for dating. Like if you start, instead of going on Tinder where you need to be hot as fuck to succeed, essentially, it would be the equivalent of playing on online cash games of GG poker, but it's high rake and you have to be damn good to crush. which would be you need to have a lot of natural talent, which is like the equivalent of looks, plus you need to actually be really good. So you need to like probably have good game as well to pull really hot women or whatever it is my guess. But like that would be what you don't have in terms of the intelligence of your approach. You have to make up for your raw, like what you would call sexual market value. If you see what I'm saying, if we're looking at these from a data angle. And I mean, the equivalent in poker would be what you lack in the intelligence of your approach is actually the same kind of concept. What you lack in terms of like finding where the value is, you got to make up for by being really fucking good at poker and having plus the talent, plus the work ethic, etc.
Would you agree that actually the biggest amount of alpha, and when I mean alpha, I'm talking alpha in terms of return, right? Not alpha as alpha male, I'm talking alpha returns. When you say that the main source of where you make money is actually targeting and screening the right players you want to play against, and basically it's about looking for the relative fish compared to you, rather than actually playing that much. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, but the difference is in poker and dating that, and what would be interesting, this is a subject for another follow-up that people are interested in this, but this is an avenue that people don't really go down. And this is what the red pill fucking overlooks completely. So in poker, yes, you do that, but it's black and white. Okay, I guess that's the word. And that you just look for opponents that are worse and you don't like contextualize a little bit and say, okay, I'm good at bluffing, so I want to find players that are bad because they overfold hard. No one does that, really. What they just say is, okay, this person's the VIP. They play like shit. They don't really care. They don't study or whatever it is. We're going to just try to play with them, sit on the left or whatever. And even then they fuck that up a bit too. And in poker, that does pretty well because all we're trying to do really is make money, which is a bit of fallacy as well. At one point, I figured out that optimizing for money is a fallacy. And this is what the red pill hasn't exactly figured out, which is big hint. We're not trying to optimize for how much we get laid when we're trying to make our life good. We're trying to optimize to how to make our life good, right? So that's different than optimizing for how much you get laid. And then you take this a step further, and this is where we finally get to the realm of we're on the same page with women because they don't look at things this way. They're not sitting there thinking, how do I fuck the most guys? That's not what they're thinking. All right, well, unless you're trying to promote, the degradation of our culture today, that's a little different than you might want to go that direction. Promiscuity and mass and OnlyFans and all this shit. Those kind of cultural values are your thing. Okay, I understand. They're not usually everyone's wholesome idea of like what kind of life they want to live. So usually when we're thinking, how do I find my man? Or something like that, right? Which is, how do I filter out all these fucking dudes and find the guy that's for me? A lot of guys are thinking, how do I have quality relationships with women and get what I want, which isn't necessarily getting laid optimally, especially using a fucking, spreadsheet with math and like saying, okay, this got like 22% more. This is something you could talk about, especially because you're dealing with INTJs that might be a little bit more data driven.
Like there's this idea you have to separate lust and love, right? The thing is, lust is associated with love. At the end of the day, it's like if you want to have a good long-term relationship, what's going to happen is that you need to have that person be aroused by you on both ends. That's the first start, right? So before you can actually even go on a relationship, and what differentiates a friend with someone that is more than a friend is sex. So then it's up to you to get the sex, or to basically manufacture your way into getting the sex. So afterwards, it's about the woman that are basically trying to, get in with the relationship. Because technically, it's up to the woman to secure the relationship. Because if you're a guy and you're trying to secure a relationship with a woman, they'll turn the woman off completely. Because then she'll think, oh, he's got no options, he's got no value. Why? Because maybe the guy's purposeful in his approach and he wants to find a family and sorting. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if I agree. Let's put it like this. And I'm going to quote, what's that book called? The Game? Where Neil Strauss basically does what you mentioned. He's like, oh, he's starting to fuck it up. He's starting to have bad game, etc. So what I think what happens in this situation, but I can't prove it. Let's put it like this. I don't 100% disagree with you. It's more that I suspect that there's something a little bit off here based on my own experiences. And a friend of mine, maybe you know this guy, Robbie Kramer, but he said that if you lead with this idea of a relationship, and I've seen guys do this, and this is what made me think, like, what the fuck? I've seen guys lead with the most extreme shit and have success with it. Lead with, hey, you're giving me wifey vibes.
You can future pace the idea of a relationship in their head in the sense of bantering, on the bantering mode, right? But when you're seeking directly the relationship, as in, what are we? Imagine you're a guy, you say, what are we? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Like, you're like serious, right? Versus leading with the idea of husband and wife, girlfriend and boyfriend, as some type of fast pacing, future pacing. That's totally different. It's about how do you frame the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can go on the first date and talk about that stuff, and that's fine.
I think there may be a bit of a subtlety in the communication, but I think that in this case, the person was like seriously leading, like, no, like, you might just be my next fucking wife. Like, I think that's what they were like trying to
You
communicate.
might be my next fucking wife, right? Look at how he said, you might be.
You're going to be is kind of crazy, right? Like, that's a different kind of error because you just met the person. You can't tell 100% that they're going to be. That's like,
Exactly. You can't tell. And that's the reason why she doesn't take that seriously. It's not as if you've been seeing one another for like 2-3 months and the guy is trying to basically say, okay, what are we? You see what I'm saying? If it's a first date type of stuff, she knows and he knows that it's kind of just like playing around. So therefore, it's not taken seriously. Therefore, that leading with the boyfriend material is not really that meaningful, if you see what I'm saying.
well, let's put it like this. I'm not 100% convinced. Like, this is where I'd want to see some data, but I also think, and this is where I just want to see if, like, remember the whole concept of optimizing for lays, right? I think that if you lead with this, what you're doing, there's a good chance, I don't know for sure, it could just be your way. This is where it's like very hard to tell. Like, the girls in their mind or subconscious or whatever have already, I mean, guys do this too, where they already know where the guy is like potential husband material or vice versa. They already know this, right? So when you throw out this possibility of like, maybe you're, my next wife or whatever, or say in a way like, what are we? Now you're kind of like forcing the point in her mind of like, oh, am I going to be in a relationship, or was this just like playing around and I'm not really, not forcing the question, if you see what I'm saying. So we're kind of like bringing this idea to focus, and now the girl has to like confront the awkward realities of being with this person when they're looking for this kind of thing and they just don't really know. And so that it closes lots of doors, but it closes a lot of the right doors if what you're seeking happens to be a life partner, if you see what I'm saying. Because then you're actually doing something very efficient, but you're definitely not optimizing for lays. In terms of the payoffs for lays, you're doing a terrible, terrible thing. But in terms of the payoff for finding a life partner, you just skipped a shitload of wasted time and, pleasure or whatever.
The thing is, and that's where maybe we will disagree, is if you want to find a life partner, there's no difference between optimizing for lay and optimizing for life partner. It's not lays at the expense of life partner. If you want a life partner, the sooner you get laid with her, the better. So like the longer the longer time you waste time with her, the worse. Why? Because then you create artificial handicaps for the union to be made. And more importantly, if the woman is weaponizing sex as a way to reassure herself and to feel secure, then what happens is that she's already power gaming you in a way to make her feel in control of a situation that she doesn't want to feel in control of.
We're saying something a little bit different. So what I'm saying is, okay, so let's imagine it like a poker hand. A guy is talking to some women. It's almost like placing a bet, and we're placing a very large bet, and we're hoping we get called by worse. Like, this is basically the equivalent of placing a very large bet and trying to get a call. But if we get called
on the flop, on the turn, on the river,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just the final street. And like, it's going to get folded a massive amount of the time. But this is kind of what we're doing when we say like, what are we? Or something along these lines. We're forcing the point, like maybe this is going to be something serious, which there's variations to that too. And again, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I just think might be what's happening. The point being that, yeah, we're shutting lots of doors of girls that just want to like have fun and like, they think this is fun, like that kind of thing. What I mean is a lot of the women are not going to be there because they think they're going to fucking marry you. Let's be honest. Like, we're also not seeing lots of women because we think we're going to marry them. We're not going to marry everybody. We don't even think that we're going to marry a majority of the women that we're going to sleep with. Like, let's be real, especially all the guys today are trying to sleep with 100 women plus or whatever it is. If they're not going to marry, they don't think there's a real chance of marrying them. You can kind of tell if like someone might be marriage material or not. So imagine a girl goes to you and she says, oh, what are we? You think, well, imagine in reverse. A girl goes to say it to you and says, what are we? Like, oh, I'm thinking, bringing you to my parents, something like big like that. You're like, fuck, like, I don't really want to meet her parents. Like, I'm thinking of like, skipping town next day or whatever, something like that. You see what I'm saying? So this would think to you like, oh shit, if you had any kind of conscience at all, I don't want to like, leave this person on or anything like that. This might get awkward, or like, oh, I thought this was just playing around. So I think in reverse, this version of this actually happens with women, and it kills the vibe a little bit when they're partying in kind of like, this is fun mode and they're not really thinking about things.
Well, it depends. The thing is, it really depends upon when that happens. happens, right? It really depends on when that happens and whether she does that because she feels she really wants that guy, or she does that because she feels that, oh shit, I'm on a time clock, right? And I don't, and as soon as it's going to be the buzzer beater, I need to secure that guy. It's like one is done out of desperation, the other one is done out of a desire. Yeah, it's you as a guy to basically understand which one is what.
Well, if it's, I'm going to say something that's going to hurt somebody's feelings just now, but
I love the disclaimer, by the way.
if it's out of desperation, she doesn't want you, like not you.
Boom. Exactly.
But I will say another thing to reignite the hope. And this is, I think, is the truth of this statement that just be yourself, actually, is that most guys have not really found out who they are. That is given that most guys are essentially, it's impossible to tell who the fuck they are, man. Like, you talk to them and you're like, who the fuck is this person? And so the woman, she doesn't like you for you, but you've not polarized enough to be differentiable. Not you, but anyone, your client or whoever, whatever some guy having trouble is. They haven't been differentiable to be strongly sought after by a woman. At least that's what the theory goes, right? Like that would be the hope, is that they find out who they polarize enough that, okay, some girl says, okay, I really want this person. They like have those qualities, these masculine qualities that everyone keeps ranting about. Do you agree with all that?
I mean, totally, I would agree. Like most guys don't know who the fuck they are, and women are not that much better at deciding who they are and who they are dealing with. I mean, to be honest, they are very poor discernment anyway. So it's like, it's so funny. It's like you can almost make a best get. Like honestly, if you could have prop bets upon making speculation as to whether this girl will get the outcome she wants with that guy and with that guy, I'll be a millionaire if I could make those prop bets, because they're so predictable. Going back to the question, not the question, like more like the statement you made, right, where it makes more sense for them to ask this. Because, and I say, if a guy does it, what happens is that he's becoming feminine, because it is a role of the woman to seek and officialize the relationship, because relationships are mostly the benefit of the woman. So if the guy does that, right, is that basically he's feeling like he's getting a better deal than he should be getting. And that's what the woman reads it as. That's why women would do that. That's because the thing is, if you're a guy and you chase a woman and that woman gives you the time of day, but is not willing to give you a relationship, there's a reason for it. And you as a guy trying to get for what she's not giving you is only confirming what she's already thinking, which is, you're not that good enough for me.
I don't know if I agree with the part of like the guy pursuing the relationship. I would think that has a negative projection. I agree with that. That's clearly true. And there's some reason for that. That seems likely true as well. The qualm that I would have is, I don't know if it's confirmable that that's automatically bad. I can see how that isn't necessarily true. I don't know for sure though. This is where I don't know. If someone could like prove to me, I don't really buy that it's like, actually it should be both people want to be in a relationship, in my opinion. This is where I think the red pill needs a lot of work, is they seem to think that if you get more money, or if you get more insert measurable quantity, hotness or something like that, that now that's going to work. And definitely from my experience, it did not appear to work exactly like that. But you might get more of this X factor, sure. But the X factor can be a lot of different things. Like, it can be a lot of fucking things, and it could just be something that you're just not going to have. And that varies all the time with women. We did talk with that a bit. This is where dating really varies from women, because it goes back to the example of wearing blue fucking hair. Like, that's definitely going to put off a lot of women, but that's a central theme of my personal personality, where I'm willing to do some crazy things. Like, I could be crazy as fuck if necessary, and that's just part of who I am. And
but you own it.
That still puts off plenty of women that are just not going to be a good match for me, right? I think we've gotten to that point.
But you're doing both of you a favor. Yourself, because you're not wasting time with women that are not going to be your cup of tea, nor you're going to be theirs. And then you can focus on the one that will really, really like you. That's it.
But I think, by the way, this whole, like, you're giving me wifey vibes kind of thing, or like really kind of shit of like, maybe we're, good for a relationship, is doing that, is what I think is the case, is like filtering for the possible really good matches and cutting through. I don't know, but that's my strong suspicion, just because it also takes loads of balls to say that, by the way. I'm afraid to say that, if I'm honest.
But the thing is, because you take things so seriously. It's like, if you knew the amount of bullshit I'd say just because I'm talking shit. Whereas the biggest thing of talking shit is talking about telling people whatever comes across your head, give it a little bit of serious aspect to it, but more in the bantery way. It's almost like in every joke, there's always a bit of truth, but it's still a bit of a banter, but a bit of joke. So it changes really the content. Because also one thing that guys always have a problem with understanding is because they look at things in a very objective lens, in an objective manner. That's why, for example, looks, money, status, all of that, right? But that doesn't make you a fucking personality out of you. Guys always complain about, oh, women say, oh, I love traveling, like it's a personality trait. Yeah, well, guess what? Your looks, your money, your status ain't no much better than her fucking traveling. So who are you as a fucking individual? What do you carry with you? What's your swag? What's your, what's your personality?
How do you get this out of these like boring ass INTJs or whatever they are, these guys that come to you, right? I presume that they're boring. I don't know for sure.
They're not boring. They have different type of skews. So it's like some of them are actually quite extrovert, but some of them are very dry. And I'm like, well, it's about just be a bit more interesting upon the person, be a bit more subject driven, be a bit more empathetic, and stop thinking about how do I act as an algorithm. Let things flow and appreciate that whatever you do is not necessarily going to yield the result that it can be expected.
As someone who's in poker, I find it challenging to turn human computers into flow machines and poker, which apparently I've cracked the code in poker. I'm curious how you make these guys flow more. How does that work?
I'll just say, I want you to get out in a situation, but the step by step, that they actually can get more comfortable, right? It's like if you have trouble and problems talking to people, first go outside, just basically, smile to other people when they see you. Don't say hi whatsoever, right? Sometimes just ask for something really random with no agenda whatsoever, or sometimes maybe just a compliment, just so that people that they're not so stuck into their own blinders and all that, right? Then you're like, okay, well, why don't you join something such as, a dance class, some type of or a social meetup group on something that you're interested, so that you can actually talk with other people that you are interested about things. Could be also a great place to meet people. Those are first things, right? Then basically you level up and you go to the next stage, which is, all right, well, now that you kind of get used to interacting with people, because seriously, since the digital age, a lot of people are very much stuck onto their screen. Why don't you go now, let's say, to mixers, to speed dating, to even opening dating apps, right? And it's like, also what you find is that you have a lot of people especially among the INTJs, like, well, yeah, but it's like, like dating apps is just a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. You have like all those chads, you get everything, or I'm getting poor matches, etc. The damn chad, the boogie chad, the boogeyman, right?
Boogie chat.
Anyway, the boogie chad. And I'm like, okay, fine. You read all of these things, right? You read all of these things, and then I said, all right, well, this is a chart. Back in 1995, only 2% of people we meet online. Now we're 2025, it's 40% people that meet online that got married. So either you can look at the negative or either you can look at the positive. But if you're with me, you have to look at the positive because that's what you want to go for, right? And at the end of the day, you have to understand, okay, well, what is also your expectations level? Like, the thing is, it's like, you want to go for 8+? All right. Are you displaying what you need to display in order to get those level, right? Or are you in the right spots, right? You were talking about spots, right? Because also a very good thing that you mentioned earlier is when it comes to dating and poker, it's like, I say to people, I say to guys, whether it's social circle, whether it is a day game, night game, dating apps, social gatherings such as meetups or, mixers or meetups or speed dating, you have to try everything, because at one point, if an environment doesn't work for you, you have to go in the environment that worked for you the best. Like, I'm sure you must have met some people that were way better tournament players than cash game players.
Yeah, that's true. Usually it's because...
And vice versa.
Yes. Well, usually it's because of one specific detail, which is that, or one large detail that I would say, maybe there's more that I'm not thinking of, but the main one would be having a bit of a nitty tendency, a being more cautious tendency that tends to be better in tournaments. On the whole, it's not always better, but if we're talking about in a vacuum, yeah, that's good. It certainly will make you last long and have the appearance of being better. What I'm saying is that, well, the real factor here, a really important factor in poker, and probably in solving this, I mean, solving anything is going to be how analytical you are, getting through these various nuances to get through all the details of what's really going on. So a lot of these guys that sit around and last very long, which a lot of people think means that they're good, doesn't necessarily mean the results are going to be very good, if you see what I'm saying, because there's lots of caveats to that. You could definitely have a lower percent of being in the money, but because you show up with more chips when you do, because of some things that you do earlier on in tournaments, such as increase the variance when people are more likely to play a bit too tight or whatever, or just take more risks to get a bigger stack, to have more leverage in situations where that's useful, that would lead to big results later. But you see it eventually in the actual results. It's a bit more clear, but you could look at the wrong stats and come to the wrong conclusions. Anyway, a similar effect can happen in dating. As we talked about, we polarize really hard. You can have not fantastic success rates with opening. It's the results are more extreme with dating. And speaking of which, I'm curious of like the specific nuanced approaches you use for different kinds of clients, because you say that they are skewed in different directions. So you must give them different kinds of strategies, right? Some you give to go on certain online sites, I guess, and some you tell to go to the club, maybe. I don't know how many you're telling that to, but maybe you tell them that. Maybe you tell them they go to the fucking library. I don't know, or go to the park and take their dog with them if they have a dog. That doesn't sound that crazy, but I haven't met like one fucking girl at the park, by the way.
You gotta talk to some girls. If you see a girl at the park, I see a girl at the park, just go talk to her.
I haven't seen like any attractive girl at a park, but I don't just like live in parks. So if I was in parks all fucking time, for sure would happen, because I know some girls that I like quite a lot that went to parks. What the strategies for these various people? Maybe their walks in the parks, because I'm sure for sure attractive women go to fucking parks.
No, it really depends upon the kind in terms of, okay, what's their target, okay? Do you want to find a wife? Do you want to have kids? All right, cool. Then that basically, that you tells me about, you're serious about this, that's fine. And I'd say, be open in your strategy whenever you go on the apps, right? You know, and some guys are just apps. And to be honest, I'd say just go for that, because I just, like, you don't have the time and there's too much of a learning curve for you to be really good at this. And for me, it's also good because I can actually show them how to strengthen their communication on the apps in terms of, okay, well, look, this is what you say, this is what you do, etc., 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 right? So for them, I would be like that, right? Someone is just kind of like, okay, well, I'm coming out of divorce, got like a lot of there's a lot of they've not been in the market for 20 years, sometimes 15 years, 10 years, and then be like, whoa, what the hell's happening, right? And it's like, okay, well, you know, they have good, and some of them have really good emotional IQ, right? So you're just like, okay, well, that means this means that. Just I'll tell them, focus on momentum, get them, like, talking to them about the logistics. Okay, you want to have fun, that's fine. If you want to have something serious, you can do exactly the same thing, but you have to divert a little bit more the interaction in such a way. And the follow-ups, sometimes it's people that have a strong social anxiety, and it's not even about dating. Sometimes it's actually a lot about mental health, where you actually support them and trying to basically make them feel that their confidence and their overthinking comes to an issue, and their overthinking are really holding them back. And a lot of their limitation are just projection onto others, and then they become like, sometimes their ego can be very, very fragile and they can't do this, right? And what you realize is that a lot of guys, especially one that are actually doing very well in life, they never really got interested in women. They were not that interested. So it's like, you'd be like, okay, well, I just want to get this sorted out, 6-9 months, I want a family, boom boom boom, done, bye-bye, right? That's the thing. Sometimes I'm working with a guy that is trying to save his marriage, right? Because it's like, okay, well, this is what she's doing, this is what she, because I've been in a long-term relationship. I know all the fucking intricacies of what's happening in terms of the dynamic of the relationship, the moment where she's basically pulling shit tests, how to pass those shit tests in the relationship, what does she do, what it means, how you need to address it, tackle it, getting them to understand, okay, well, what is dread for her to come back into your realm, so that she becomes much more compliant, much more enthusiastic about you and what you need to do on the side. So it's very multidimensional. It's not just, hey, look, I'm just going to help you get laid, man. It could be someone that just want to find a wife, someone that want to keep his wife. But at the end of the day, once you understand that dating and relationship, you understand human psychology, both on the men's side and the female side. Because it's like, what I find so fucking frustrating, and whenever I go dating, it's like, I'm already knowing exactly what's happening on the female side, what needs to be done, what needs to be said, but there's no level of comprehension, understanding, or even empathy towards the male side from her side, which is very off-putting, but very insightful for what I do on a day-to-day basis with my job, because it keeps me always entertained in the dynamics of things. I'm not just armchairing the bullshit.
It seems like you're solving a bunch of people's different kinds of problems. I was envisioning this as telling certain guys, okay, you know, you have the strengths of you're smart or whatever, and some other guy's strength is charismatic and has, you know, it's got like good banter.
That's part of that. It's like, focus on your strength. Don't think too much about your weaknesses. And you know why that is that because if you want to find the right girl will like your strength as much as your weaknesses. Your weaknesses will be strengths to her, right? If you're
It's
looking
a
to basically
romantic
score
idea.
wide, yeah, exactly. No, but hey, I'm a romantic. I'm French. Come on. But if you're looking to score wide, you need to basically tune out, mute those weaknesses as much as possible. because they're looking to disqualify.
Yeah, they do tend to look to disqualify on the whole, maybe not universally. So suppose a guy doesn't have charisma, that's a lot of guys, doesn't have good looks. What the fuck does he have exactly? What are these strengths we're talking about? How do you get these guys to use them in their favor? Can you give a couple examples of that? Because I'm thinking to myself, like, suppose a guy's like not good for a majority of situations, and a lot of guys watching this thinking to themselves too that they're no good on dating apps. Like almost no one is good. Let's be honest, almost no one's good. Take away their good looks, pulling women on dating apps. Like fucking no one is. Please, almost no one is. Also has like the sick banter or whatever. This is quite a rare percent as well. They go to bars and they pick up women. I mean, I'm not buying there's a lot of guys that do that, and almost no one has like.
I was one of them.
That's why you have a podcast. That's one of the reasons why I fucking made a podcast, was to actually get better at the skill, by the way. Well, shit. I would hope so. That's why you're the fucking dating coach. I would hope that you can pick up women at bars, right? Anyway, a lot of guys don't have the sick status. Now we're left with, 80% of guys that don't have shit in their lives or don't have like these auto-crushing traits. What do they do?
Okay, so let's say Mr. Bob Standard average guy, okay? Fine.
Yeah, right.
Like, let's say, first of all...
Well, he's got some kind of... Let's say he's average, but he's got some kind of something that identifies him as different from, Joe down the street.
First of all, I'd say, what's your body fat percentage? It's about fucking, like, getting rid of that, right? If you want to look better in terms of looks maxing, you go to the hairdresser and basically see from, like, physiognomy-wise what's going to be the best hairstyle from this and facial hairstyle in order to maximize your natural features, right? Next thing is, it's all about marketing. You can have a shit product, but with great marketing, that's going to do better than a great product with shit marketing, all right? Invest in a good photographer, especially specialized in dating, right? Because it's like, if you look on dating apps as a woman, right? It's like you look at those guys, especially after 35. 35 is the shadow is a valley of death, man. It's like, seriously, so many guys let themselves down. Like, you just by being in good shape, taking care of yourself, you're just already in the top 10%. And I'm not even talking from a money perspective. I'm talking just from taking care of yourself. Oh, massive difference. No, but the thing is, it's like, you just go and ask your average 40, 45-year-old woman, they're all just going for 30-year-old guy. Why? Because it's like, the guys around their age is just like,
I just want to see some data. Maybe there's loads of guys that don't take care of themselves at all. Like, if it's that easy.
Man, make a fake female profile and swipe, put your age range, and you see the average guy. No wonder, like, the average guy don't know how to take pictures. The average guy don't have style. The average guy doesn't groom himself. Really, already by focusing on, and the average guy is about, let's say, 28 plus BMI. And I'm being nice with 28% BMI, right?
I really want to see some data on this one, because like, if they don't have those, I don't see how they're going to get anyone that's any attractive at all. Another feature I forgot to take away, by the way, is taking away money. What are these skews that we're talking about that we can use for guys' advantages? Or height. If they don't have money, height, status in some kind of obvious way, looking really good facially. I don't think if a guy, to be honest, I don't think if a guy's really ripped, he's going to get like super that many women, but he'd probably get some.
Again, all of these are nice to have. They're nice to have in the sense that some girls that will really like with someone that is ripped.
I think money is probably like more powerful than being ripped, almost for sure. That's my personal guess. But
if you want to fuck, being ripped gonna get you way more than having money. If you just want to fuck, but if you want a long-term relationship, then money will just take the lead. If a guy just want to basically be that guy, I'd say go to the gym over making money every day, because women don't need money as much. But if you're already part of like one of the very few people that have got less than 13% body fat with a high muscle lean mass, you're part of like 1 to 5%. And these women, from a marginal utility perspective, find more arousal in a guy that is basically ripped and jacked, as long as he's got some fucking personality and social skills. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be zero, right? Just know how to speak, know how to deal with people. That's already a big thing, right? And then just, are you packing? Like nothing muscle. But I would say if someone doesn't have any of that, doesn't have money, doesn't have looks, doesn't have status, I would say just being completely irrationally confident about you. Because what does that mean? What is the main vector of attraction for women? Pre-selection. What does I mean by that? When you have status, technically you're pre-selected. When other women like you, you're pre-selected. So if you don't have women that you can, market yourself with so that you can show success, when you don't have status, the indirect way for you to be able to display and showcase that is have irrational self-confidence. And that will create that charisma, and that will basically tell the girl, well, like, imagine, right? It's like, this guy, he's not a Chad. Well, why is he so confident? You know, like there must be something about him. So they get a bit intrigued. Not all of them, but a good portion of them will be intrigued.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
What is this? And then like for that guy to be that confident, because for me, in order to be that confident, I must be getting so much positive reinforcement. So he must be getting positive reinforcement. What's so crazy about him? At first, I would want to learn something about him, and then afterwards, be like, if he fucks another girl, I must fuck him just to know why. Seriously, man, that's like. And on top of that, I was shagging girls way more when I had more money, no less money, than when I had more money because I had more time and I was full of shit. You know, it's like. Just give me basically one good line of bullshit and a great smile. That's it. That was me. And I was even pudgier. That was crazy shit.
That's
I
so
was
funny.
110 kg. I know, seriously.
There's a couple things that I'd personally like to mention about this is that it looks like being really ripped. I don't know, because it can be beneficial to be pudgier at various different environments. This is where, like, I want to look at some data. One thing I want to say is that it's also a virtue to be irrationally self-confident. Like, that's still an asset of sorts. It's not as powerful as an asset of like being rich or having status or like, you know, being tall. Being tall is like probably better than all those. Well, not status, but still an asset. That would be one of the skews that we're talking about. Okay, now a guy's got, if the guy's got, you know, in the words of a girl that I once talked to, I've also talked to plenty of these women. One of those girls said, it's got to be something, right? One of the skews, because these skews tend to represent assets. I presume not in every universal case. Having like a third leg is not an asset, but it's a pretty big skew.
Even what third leg you're talking about?
Well, most girls are not into that one. That might be a reduced market. Even like, you know, the giant dick probably is not a particular asset. But the pudgy thing, like you would look bigger if you had muscle. You would look bigger if you had like a little bit of body fat compared to looking really good without your shirt off. That's one funny thing. It's kind of demotivated me to get in really good shape because it's a pain in the ass. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know how much like being fucking ripped is gonna actually get me laid more than now. Unless I'm like at the fucking beach, yeah, okay, I get it then, but I'm not really doing that. And like a girl's gonna start coming up and talking to me, and
you have to look at it from a different perspective, right? A lot of guys, they get more confident when they dress well, when they're more ripped. Like, you know, like they go for the pump before they go out because it creates like they have some type of, I don't know, chemical reaction inside their body. They'll be like, oh, I'm feeling great. And when I'm saying this, right, I'm saying if you're going to be a bit autistic and just have muscles, that's not done. Your marginal utility of it is not going to be great. You see what I'm saying? Because
that's a major like red flag if someone has no social skills at all, you know?
Exactly. That's the thing, even though I said to you earlier, it's like rather if you focus on muscles and money if you want to talk, right? I'm saying your muscles are not your personality. And you know, like I'll say this, right? Personality to a man is what makeup is to a woman. In the sense that women can increase their looks. A 6 become an 8 with a good makeup and good strategy in terms of clothes and whatever, right? A guy can actually increase his overall SMV objectively from the confidence that he has outside of the looks, money, status, and whatnot, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the objective reality that matters in the girl's eyes. It's about the subjective reality. And what is the subjective reality? Is those pre-selection mechanisms that you convey in your communication that basically tell her without telling her that you're the hot shit, the hot shit. It's like when she sees you, she doesn't know you in the sense of people expect everybody to know everything about themselves. But she's not a fucking credit rating agency as if I'm going to create a, like, let's say I'm a girl, right? And I go and I say to you, Daniel, I don't know about you. I don't know about your poker career. I don't know about your status in the world whatsoever. And you know, and you're like, well, I'm a fucking poker OG type of shit, right? And she doesn't know anything about you. But then if you act very humble as a nobody, she'll assume that you're a nobody because your communication will have conveyed that. If you see what I'm saying. Even though the objective reality is you're definitely not a nobody. And that's what a lot of guys don't understand. It's not because you know that you're not necessarily something that you're not, that you have to basically display that to the other woman. If you basically convey to her that you're that hot shit, even though you're a piece of shit, she'll believe that you're that hot shit.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with the analogy. I know what you're trying to say. I see how there's like some similarity there. I just think that a personality, like you can change your personality, like you can change it to be more attractive. I agree with that. But like if you make that change, it's permanent, right? Like that becomes part of your personality, or at least certain elements of your personality change. Whereas if a woman puts on makeup, that is temporary. But she can, you know, she can work out. She can like, you know, go to the gym, get some squats in. Like that'll make a difference. That makes a difference. I talked about this before. I you know, there's loads of women that I was attracted to them until I, you know, maybe that's, you could say like if a guy puts on his A game, like that can be his woman's makeup, right? And puts on his A game with his personality, pretends to be all confident or whatever. And like in reality, he's not.
The next morning, you're like,
Uh,
oh, what is this? What is this? Like, hey, no, but that's it. The confidence personality. I mean, I put like a slash in between because it's like, look, fake confidence is like makeup to a woman. It just vanishes overnight.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's possible to do that if you're like get yourself in some weird mental state or whatever. I mean, that must happen. I mean, for sure, guys have their like high points or whatever. I can see that. I saw this thing. This is a bit of a qualm of mine. I want to like challenge this quote unquote. I don't think it's objective reality, if I'm honest, but I think there's truth to it. But I like to point out the view. We say this idea of, and it's in both directions. Let's see what you think. So I don't want to feel a dick about disagreeing with you.
I'm French. I love the debate.
Good. I saw you writing something like, I didn't think of the quote, but it was like, if you believe that there are good women out there, that you're still a mama's boy, something like that, I think is how it went.
Yeah. I remember there's a Rivellino type of stuff because I quoted Rivellino. Yeah.
Okay, so Michael Sartain also said a bit something sort of similar, that he hoped that men had some like super slut friends so we can know exactly what women are capable of and do all these slut things. I want to like challenge this view for a second,
Okay.
but first, why don't you go ahead before I say what I'm about to say? Do you really believe this? There's no good women? Is this what you think?
No. Look, that it's a matter of understanding where it's coming from. All right. The idea that you have good or bad women is almost making it think that inherently women are good. Women are not good nor bad inherently. Women are product of their environment. Therefore, whenever you as a guy start to idealize a woman because you think that she is good, as a contrast to the rest of the other woman, which is generally what people say why they're good, what happens is that you create this type of frame inside your head that she's way more scarce and way more valuable that she actually is. And it's only a product of your perception that actually creates within inside you that predisposition for pedestalizing a woman, which eventually leads you to behaviors that are counterproductive if you want to be with that woman. So when I say this, it goes deeper than just, they're all super sluts. No, I'm saying that you thinking this means that you've not graduated from the school of life, understanding that people are only as good as the opportunities they got to stay good.
I don't agree with that, but I do think that that's often true. I think that a lot of people are, as you say, for example, like this is actually, I was thinking about this. Like there's a lot of false positives you can say. This is kind of what you're saying, right? So if a woman is in an environment with lots of healthy social strategies, this is what I personally call them, where they have lots of, where it's just like a good dating culture. People don't flake so much. People are honest. People don't play games. People don't, they don't do all these avoidance strategies that you actually, or these like mind fuck strategies that you also just describe in your tweets. I don't think those are good ideas personally, by the way. I think that'll get inside a woman's head, but in the long run, it's hard to prove again. Like this kind of fucked with my mind for a while, but I think long run, they'll say, okay, we don't want to deal with that shit. But
it's a matter of degree. The thing is, if you're too straight, narrow, routine driven, I love this because I don't like change. That's going to bore her. But if you're too crazy on the avoidance strategy or mindfuck, whatever, it's gonna break it because people don't want to deal with that shit. So again, it's really a matter of degree.
I want to challenge that too, but let's just like wait a second for that, because I think it could be wrong again. But anyway, for the first one, so on this idea of good and bad, I think there are absolutely cases of people and women where they do not fit in their environment. This is the true good woman or true good person, is like all their environment is shit, right? This is the nature of the lotus and spirituality. The lotus shines in the dark and isn't tainted by all the shit around it, right? Everyone's doing bad shit. The lotus is not, right? So there are people like that.
And my long-term relationship was like that. You know what? I 100% agree with what you're saying because I lived that.
Perhaps you were the lotus and that you were loyal and you knew a bunch of people that cheated or whatever it was, but you didn't do that, or I don't know what the situation was.
I know that these women exist, but would you say that they represent the minority, or would you say that most women are product of their own environment?
Most women are absolutely product of their environment. That's why they're fucking normal people. I mean, same thing with guys. They're fucking shitheads or whatever. They're boring ass guys. Most people are products of their environment. There are actually good people. That's what makes them good, because they're the light and in the darkness, right?
The light in the dark, but like I don't want guys to be like women by making the exception the rules when the exception confirms the rule. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, you want them to follow true objective reality. Like if a woman's, I mean, this is one thing I learned. If a woman's actually a good person or whatever, you reward her for being a good person. This is actually a good game.
Yeah, 100%. We both agree on this.
Yeah, a bunch of them are fucking shit and basic, sure,
Yeah.
but there are ones like, this is actually, I think, a good analogy. But if there's like it's night out, right? Most of the sky is night, but there are stars in the sky, and the way to see the stars, because most of the sky is night. right? Is the contrast there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm reading this and I'm thinking to myself, and also thinking of Michael Sartain's example, that first of all, there are good women. And second of all, that every single person is going to do something bad under some circumstances, but the frequency of which they do something bad is lower. It's kind of like also a good player is going to get most things right. A good poker player is going to play, closer and closer to perfect, but never truly perfect.
Also, don't forget one thing, right? It has dual purpose why I say this. The first one is to make people realize that actually thinking with this mindset will lead you to the wrong path, even if you find that good woman. And instead of putting good woman, I'd say look at compatibility, because I think it's way more useful, and it kind of like, you're most likely as a guy, you're not that special. You're not that perfect. You have your own weakness, you have your own shortcomings. If you create that idea that she's a good woman, it's almost like, that guy that looks at this woman that's an 8 or a 9 or a 10 and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, I'm shooting out of my league type of stuff, right? So compatibility is like, what? Actually, it's much more like on an equal level term, and it doesn't create that scarcity once you're inside there. So it's not to shit on women to say that they're all bad. It's just to make people realize that actually stop pedestalizing them. That's the first thing. And the second thing was product of the environment, which we discussed just now.
I can see how this would get guys out of this mindset. I personally am a bit sick of, I do think this society as a whole does pedestalize women a bit. And I'm kind of sick of seeing it. At least we're doing this thing, and this is going to get to the next point of what's going on. We're doing this thing of we're looking through the culture through what is often known as weird culture. And this is a big thing that everybody does, is they look at things through their own lens of experience. But all Western people basically have pretty much the same, not quite the same, but variations on that weird culture where women are not always pedestalized in this way. It depends on the culture. This flows very nicely into the next point. But basically, the whole world doesn't, and even most of the world in history did not behave at all like it does today when it comes to dating. This is a big reason why now monogamy is such a difficult thing to enforce or follow, or the sex before marriage shit, because this didn't happen in history at all, really. There's not a huge amount of promiscuity. But speaking of which, you said this idea of being predictable, etc., is bad. I'm gonna have to challenge that. I think this is true for a lot of the avoidant culture, a lot of the traumatized women, and a lot of the ones that run around in first world culture, where this is just whatever's been going on in this culture, where then, if you're, again, trying to optimize for lays and try to optimize for being a fuckboy or whatever it is, doing stuff like this is going to be good and will get you more action, but it's going to make them see you as more of the fuckboy guy, which is accurate because you're doing fuckboy things, right? They're actually being a bit fair in this case, but it's not going to put whoever, not necessarily you, anyone in the category of want to marry this person. But the behavior women do when they treat you as the fun fuckboy guy, they're different from how they treat you in, maybe Prince Charming. And from Prince Charming, they definitely want you to really be into them all the fucking time and be consistent on the whole. I would say that it's just more of a tendency of women. You'll see it more in Eastern Europe or somewhere. They want that versus the fuck boy, I would say.
There are a few things that I'd like to point out, right? So that stuff is very much Western focused, right?
Oh, okay.
When it comes to Eastern Asia, I don't have enough experience to talk about Eastern Asia, so I'll just move that along. Eastern Europe, definitely the fuckboy thing is not going to be as conducive as, let's say, the gentleman type of thing. So that's, just so we're going to put that aside. However, once you're in the West, what happens is that, yeah, great. The thing is, the reason why love arise from the husband material type of shit, right, is they do not feel the need to perform because they are nothing to be performed. They're not worth being performative towards, right? Because these guys were not the first choice. And the reason why they're not the first choice is because she went with them out of security and reassurance, not out of arousal.
Oh, that's a big problem.
Yeah, the big problem. But why is, and the reason why it's arousing is when it's not predictable. The matter is, when it comes to a relationship, it's yeah, I understand that there's that big dichotomy that you create between, yes, it's optimizing for lays, but also want to have lays inside the relationship. And what happens inside relationship, one of the I'm not saying the main, one of the main reasons why relationship fall apart is because it's too boring. And why is it too boring? because it's too predictable. And one of the ways to recreate and rekindle that relationship, because, people have invested many years, money, infrastructure in that relationship, so they have a lot more to lose by when it breaks down, is you need to recreate that idea of, I don't know what's happening. And how do you do that? You do that by basically being less communicative, less validating, less cooperative. And that's something that is counterintuitive when it comes to us guys, because we're looking to solve problems. We're looking to do more every time because we are more invested in, there's also a big risk through divorce that we lose out on things. So you're finding yourself in a situation, well, what your instinct will tell you is everything that you shouldn't do, where you need to embrace a bit more of the fuckboy vibe in order to rebalance, because you're too much on the husband material vibe. But it's never about being too much on one side or on the other. And that's what I was saying about looping back in with what I was saying. Too much boringness ends the relationship. Too much toxicity ends the relationship. It's just about finding that right in the middle, here and there, when it's almost like you're the orchestra major, if you see what I'm saying.
I still don't think I agree 100%, but I think you're definitely onto something. I think that toxicity isn't really ultimately long run a good thing, long run being the key word. But if, again, we're optimizing for something a little bit arbitrary, meaning in this case, the prolonging of a relationship, it can, for this arbitrary goal, I say the word arbitrary for an important reason. It's not necessarily in the collective best interest. Like, that's the objective reality I refer to, in which case, for the sake of prolonging the relationship, it might be better. But I think in the long run, theoretically, like, things that are toxic by definition have the quality of creating bad things later on, right? This is the thing. I think there's some interconnectedness here. Now, I think, to preface, if a woman marries a guy and it's for security and it's not because he was exciting or something, I would say that there's a really good chance that a lot of the these women go after, sometimes they do want that spark of like unpredictability as well. But I think that like that can be a major factor. This is where things conflate a little bit. But I think that often the guys that they go for have that element of unpredictability, and they just didn't really want the original guy they settled with in the first place, and they're kind of screwed because of whatever sequence of events happened. So, for example, there's a bit of a theory that this whole desire for variation in sexual experiences was biologically for the purpose not of like having sex with different women or different like men or whatever, but also for the sake of like strengthening a relationship. Like, and that's obviously fucked up from the culture. So there's that possibility. And then also there's definitely a range of things that can be done to spark up a relationship that don't fall into the range of toxic. But if, again, we are optimizing for things that have the characteristic of, in this case, or we're doing things that are unpredictable, there's definitely going to be a range where you're going into the fuckboy category, right? There's definitely going to be, those things that are toxic, and it's easier to be toxic plus unpredictable than it is to be just unpredictable, if you see what I'm saying. Because if you're going to be unpredictable and not toxic, there's a much narrower range of things that you can do to fit both of those constraints, if you see what I'm saying. And it might make you a little bit less exciting or make somebody less exciting, but it will also probably like help the relationship in the long run.
Just for example, I have something, let's say you're working on your boat. Let's say you do some creative stuff within a group whatsoever. You just know inside the four walls of your house, and your girlfriend is not there. So, but you're doing something for yourself that basically, and then you'll see that she will want to actually come back and be like, get back here, because it's like she loses control and she feels she has to. It's funny when women feel they control too much the guy, they get bored. But if they don't feel enough control, then they get worried and anxious. And it's always about control with the woman. You'd be like, well, what's happening here? But again, the degree and the level of toxicity is dependent and correlated to the woman at the other end, because the more woman has been damaged, the more toxicity is needed. That's the reality, unfortunately.
That sounds right, yeah.
And a lot of women are being damaged these days.
The other stuff you said makes lots of sense to me personally, yeah.
Thing is, whether it's my client, whether it's you, or whether it is even individuals and everything, I always welcome the challenge, because not only does it help compartmentalize my thoughts, and like when you have like all this type of information, but also this is where I actually provide the best, I wouldn't say takes, but the best way of summarizing a lot of information that may be a bit too raw in itself. So thanks.
I appreciate your openness to debate, but yeah, we got to wrap this up. It's been quite long, but I find this stuff quite interesting. So thank you for your time, French OG.
No worries.
Good luck with helping men with their problems.
I appreciate that, and thank you for letting me join your podcast. Pleasure.